Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here today, and thank you to the organizers for bringing us all together. So I represent ActionAid Denmark, or Mellemfolkeligt Samvirke, as we're known in Denmark. We've been working in Palestine for years now. We work especially around youth mobilization, supporting rights-based work there, but increasingly, obviously, since October 7th, our work has been humanitarian. What I'd like to talk about today is the court case that we have launched together with Oxfam and Amnesty and the Palestinian rights organization Al-Haq to stop the supply of arms from Denmark to the Israeli war machine. But I wanted just to start by saying why it is we even got involved with this. So in our humanitarian work, we saw quite early the terrible consequences that this war was having and the gross violations of human rights. We support a hospital in northern Gaza called Al-Awda. Some of you may have heard of this hospital. It's currently in the media because the relentless campaign against the brave doctors that are trying to hang on with their nails and provide support to people who are injured in the conflict, to pregnant mothers who are trying to give birth in the midst of a genocide. And we were in the radio repeatedly with reports. We got daily updates from our colleagues in this hospital who were talking about what they were experiencing, and we were relaying these in the media. These are clear violations of international human rights law or international humanitarian law. We met with politicians, we discussed this risk, and we felt quite early that we were not really making headway in terms of having Danish politicians accept that violations of international human rights law means that Denmark cannot export weapons to Israel. And so we felt that we had to take a step which we hadn't done in our 80-year history, which was actually to launch a legal case against the government to try to get it stopped. We started working with lawyers already in November to discuss this, and we quickly found together with colleagues who were doing the similar things. And it was a big decision, but I also think it was the right decision, because it's clear that if we need to be looking at this not just from a media angle or a mobilization angle, but also trying to use the court cases. The law is quite clear on this. Both the the UN arms trade treaties, but also the European regulations state quite clearly that if there is a risk that weapons that Denmark exports will be used for war crimes, then we cannot do the export. You would think that this would actually be a no-brainer, given that the International Court has said that there is a plausible genocide already back in February. There is now cases against Netanyahu and Gallant in the International Criminal Court. So there clearly is not just a risk, but at this point a pretty good chance and guarantee that Danish exports of arms are being used for war crimes. However, actually getting the courts mobilized is difficult in Denmark, and we'll have to see how that case plays out. Here in February, we are going to court together with colleagues to present the first part of it, which is actually just getting what they call legal standing. In other words, the Danish courts want to understand whether we have an interest in pursuing this case. You could ask, how could we not have an interest? I mean, I have colleagues who have been running from these war crimes for a year and a half now. We have local partners whose work has been repeatedly disrupted as they're desperately trying to provide life-giving aid to people who need it. If we don't have an interest, who in Denmark could be said to have an interest in this? But this is going to be the first part of this case. The reason I'm mentioning this to you is just to make clear that the legal recourse in Denmark is a long and difficult one. We probably won't know for, maybe if we're successful now, for a few years whether or not we actually are able to win this case. But we did this with open eyes. We knew the reason that we were doing this was partly to get the courts mobilized, but it was equally also to get some more publicity on the war crimes to begin with, and also to provide an avenue for the Danish people, many of whom were horrified at what they were seeing and angry that their politicians were not acting, for them to join up. And I'm proud to say that that part of it has really worked very successfully. We launched a crowdfunding to get support for it. Within 24 hours, there had been a massive outpouring of support. It was also an attempt to try to start an international coalition of NGOs working together to use legal means. And we've been contacted from South Africa and Malaysia. We have colleagues in Holland and many other countries who are doing the same thing. But lastly, and I'll end on this, it was also an attempt to try to emphasize what also we see here in this conference today, that this war, this genocide in Gaza is not just about Gaza. It's about a fundamental attack on international humanitarian law, on the United Nations, on basic standards of humanity that will affect all of us unless we are able now to stand up and stand fast with these principles that have been developed since World War II. The consequence of not acting now together to try to stop this will be a fundamental erosion of human rights law of the United Nations all over the world. And I think mobilizing the Danes and other populations around the world around this issue is one of the greatest gifts that this movement can also offer us. It's an opportunity to stand fast around some of these fundamental principles that desperately needed in these times. And I think that is perhaps one of the most important things that we can also take away from this conference, is the struggle that will be difficult in the coming year is also a larger struggle. It's a struggle for some standards that we can't let go of now. Thank you very much.